This is a podcast for Functional Ecology at British Ecological Society publication.
Hello everyone, today I'm very delighted to share this special BES podcast episode. This episode is being released as part of the British Ecological Society's Black History Month blog series initiative. This is for the UK Black History Month in October. And the purpose of this is to provide a platform for Black ecologists and to showcase the fantastic work and research that they are doing. On that note, I'm delighted to welcome Sandra Clement Nguessan for today's podcast. Sandra is a PhD candidate at the Xenopoulos Aquatic Ecology Lab at Trent University in Ontario, Canada, and her study focus is on the role that aquatic animals play in the cycling of nutrients in lakes and streams. Hello, Sandra. How are you?
Hi, Frank. Very good. How are you?
Yeah, very, very good. Very delighted to have you on. So thank you very much for taking the time. So we'll just kick things off with some introductions. Who are you? Where are you from? And what are your research interests?
So my name is Sandra Clement Nguessan. I'm a PhD candidate, as you mentioned, in the Xenopoulos Lab at Trent University in Ontario, Canada. And I'm originally from multiple places. So my dad is from Côte d'Ivoire and my mom is from Tunisia and France. And I grew up in different countries. So I guess mostly in Africa and then in North America. And I've been really fortunate to travel a lot growing up until now. So I guess I would consider myself kind of a global citizen.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Wow, Côte d'Ivoire and Tunisia, was it?
Côte d'Ivoire, Tunisia, and France.
Wow, amazing. Do you visit a lot? Do you spend time there, or?
I'm actually going to France next week, so that one is really exciting because I haven't been back in 6 years. Côte d'Ivoire is the one that I visit most often, every 2 years usually. And then Tunisia, I haven't been back also for 6 years and hoping to be there next year.
Wow, amazing. And from being the global citizen that you are, would you say that, does growing up in all those places, those different places, did that have an impact on your desire to become an ecologist? Did it inspire you in any way, or what was the role? Yeah.
Well, first of all, it exposes you to different ecosystems. So, in Côte d'Ivoire, already in that one country, there's different ones from this, if you go from south to north. So in the south, you have more of the typical tropical rainforest that we would imagine in sub-Saharan Africa. But there's also kind of more arid savanna-like type of ecosystems further in the north. And then in Tunisia, it's kind of temperate ecosystem close to the water, but you also have the desert. And then in Kenya, Kenya is actually one of the places I've lived in. So in Kenya, I really got to see the savannah, the real savannah, quote unquote, with all the different wildlife there. And so all of this definitely shaped my interest in nature. I was really fortunate to be in nature a lot, take a lot of hikes growing up. And I've just always been curious. I've always felt comfortable. I think that's the first thing. I've just always felt comfortable and at peace being in nature. And I guess also growing up next to water, so the Atlantic Ocean in Côte d'Ivoire and then the Mediterranean Sea in Tunisia, I've been very exposed to water and fish, especially eating fish. And so it definitely spiked my curiosity to, be swimming in these immense bodies of water and wonder what is happening across all these depths,
And that's what brought you onto nutrient cycling in lakes and streams?
Eventually, I was not really thinking about nutrients then, but as I said, definitely was interested in fish. Always found them really cool to look at, swimming, doing their thing. And I guess it's through my studies in my undergrad, both in courses, but also by having different research experiences with fish, that one, it was confirmed for me that doing work with fish was fun. And then two, I was really fascinated with the ideas of cycles, especially in ecology, how everything is related, which to some extent relates to my personal experience that, growing up in different places, we have this wide range of diversity, but we're all connected. We're all can relate through values, through our just humanness. And I just wanted to study that in an ecological context. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. So I have to ask, what's your favorite fish?
Ooh, that's a difficult question. See, I have a bit of an imposter syndrome with fish in the sense that, especially in Canada, you have a lot of people who grew up fishing, so they really know their fish and all. I've really only fished for science, so I'm not a huge expert. But here in Canada, there's a fish that's really pretty. There's two. There's pumpkin seed, and then there's the trouts, including brown trouts. So I would say these are definitely in my heart. But I've also had the chance to do field work in the Caribbean and Indian Ocean, and there, of course, all the fish are just all so pretty. So all of them would be my favorite.
Well, there's no imposter syndrome there. I'm going to say you're an aficionado, and that is very much pun intended with that. Okay, good, wonderful. And what research are you working on now? Can you delve into the specifics of anything that you're up to at the moment?
Yes. So, as you've mentioned it, I'm really focusing on the role that animals play in the cycling of nutrients in all my thesis chapters and even in side projects. So, essentially, I look at the nutrient content of their urine and relate it to different factors. So, environmental factors such as the cell organic matter, both in its concentration and composition. I relate it to their just taxonomic classification, which species are we looking at, and to their trophic position. And because I'm doing it in lakes and streams, it also allows me to have this kind of multi-ecosystems perspective. And in general, I also work with scales. So, when we estimate the jargony term is nutrient excretion by animals. We look at it at the individual level, but then you can scale it up to the population and then to the community, because I sample a variety of species from both the vertebrate and invertebrate taxonomic worlds. So I really like that multi-scale approach.
Okay, wonderful, thanks. And something that we always want to ask is there anything you're looking for at the moment? This is your chance to speak to the listeners who are ecologists. Anything like collaborators. I know you're at the Xenopoulos lab at the moment, so I'm sure you're all set. But anything that help with something to do with your research? Is there anything that you'd like to say to the listeners on that?
I'm definitely always happy to collaborate. Something that's, been at the forefront of my mind for a long time, since I grew up mostly in Africa, has been to contribute to the research ecosystem there. And I've been fortunate to get some research experience in Côte d'Ivoire. And now I've recently collaborated with colleagues in Kenya who are part of ACARE, which is the African Center for African Research and Education, basically focusing on East African Great Lakes. And so I think I'm particularly interested in people who work in that region to kind of have more collaborations and potentially, think about research post PhD, because I'm hoping to be done in the near future and would be interested in doing a postdoc. So I think anything related to fish and water and the African region would be of interest to me. And the second thing that I've been interested on recently is knowledge co-production, which is something that is really looked at here in Canada with the Indigenous communities. And so I'm interested in kind of developing frameworks that are specific to, I guess, the African context, that also use that approach of basically designing questions and projects, and the whole, I guess, study, um, by doing it collaboratively with communities that depend and benefit and have a strong um, local relationship with the body of water that we're interested in working on.
Yeah, local community stakeholders, that type of thing. Wonderful. Cool.
Mhm.
Well, I was about to ask you where your dream field work would be, but I suppose you've kind of answered that with the African Great Lakes. Okay, wonderful. So moving on to the next part, I'd like to talk a little bit about Black History Month. Obviously yours is in February in America, in the States, and that kind of region. Here it's in October. But obviously, on a similar vein, it's a chance to celebrate Black history, heritage, and culture, and iconic figures who have made an impact. So I wanted to ask you what or who your Black role models are within ecology or beyond.
Um, so within ecology, I would say Wangari Maathai, or I said it in a French way, I don't know why, but I guess I learned about her when I was in French school in Kenya. And so, yeah, she's, so I don't know if anyone knows her in the audience, but she's a Kenyan woman who was really a trailblazer in tree conservation and just in general in environmental protection in Kenya, especially post colonization or post independence. And for me, she really represents resilience, and she has this approach of really tapping into her ancestral history and relationship with the land, um, to to design strategies and initiatives that fit well with the local communities, fit well with the people of Kenya, and are not just using standard, I don't know, frameworks that have been designed elsewhere.
Yeah, fantastic. And beyond ecology, is there anyone you'd like to give
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Life is way beyond ecology. But beyond ecology, classic Nelson Mandela. Um, Definitely him and Martin Luther King being um, symbols of peace and reconciliation and resilience as well, of course. And on a personal note, so on my dad's side, I'm Baule, and so in our history, Baule people came to be after the Queen Abra Poku left what is now called Ghana to go to Cote d'Ivoire. And as they were on their way, they came across a river, and the people could not cross it. And so the story says that she had to sacrifice her only kid to be able to cross the river, because I think after hippos or maybe crocodiles, some animals basically came and allowed them to cross the river. And so, as a woman, and given my ancestry, this strong figure of a woman leader, who's compassionate but also strong, and is able to make that kind of sacrifice for her people, is very telling. And then one that is more contemporary would be Rokhaya Diallo, who's a famous French journalist, filmmaker. She has all hats, and she has a strong voice in the in any type of systemic racism in France and beyond. And so she's been part of several really cool initiatives, including a podcast called Kif Tahas, which really talks about all aspects of discriminations in France. And so I really admire her for her work.
Amazing, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to pick up as well on the initial question about a black ecologist who inspires you, because you did come out with an answer quite quickly. But I think in other discussions that I've had, sometimes people struggle to think of someone because it is a very white dominated discipline, isn't it? So I wanted to ask what you thought about your experiences as a black ecologist, about things that were possible barriers, if there were anything that you can talk about, that if things were different and if we didn't need to talk about these things because everyone just got along. It's a real simplification, but you know what I'm getting at. Is there a sort of points in your journey to becoming an ecologist where you've picked up on something like that, or experiences that can speak to that?
Yes, maybe not specifically as an ecologist, but more as a person, as I was on this identity journey, which never ends. And so, as a teenager, I was fortunate to receive as a gift a book, which I have right here, which is called Mes Étoiles Noires, My Black Stars, by Liliane Thuram, who used to be a famous soccer player in France, originally from the Caribbean. And this book was really powerful for me because it basically talks about all Black people throughout history that we don't talk about and don't mention, who have made incredible contributions in all spheres. And so, it says from Lucy to Barack Obama, basically. And I don't know if there were specifically ecologists there, but there were definitely scientists, and there were just leaders in different spheres, and just having that already was a powerful moment for me to see that we can contribute in all spheres. That's one thing. The second thing, where I think I was very lucky and privileged, is the fact that I grew up in Africa, and specifically when I was in sub-Saharan Africa. So, I was surrounded by people who looked like me. And I think especially during my studies, I got to meet ecologists there, got to meet several Ivorian ecologists and talk with them, and have some mentorship relationship with them. And so that didn't hinder my ability. Well, actually, it just definitely made me see that it was possible for me to continue on that route. And then specifically in our history in Côte d'Ivoire, there is a very famous botanist who has, I guess, made a strong impact by using, again, indigenous knowledge of medicinal plants, and has basically looked at the biochemical compositions of those plants, and really brought that knowledge at a larger scale. And just knowing that this was part of our history made me really drawn to, again, continue on that path.
Yeah, wonderful. So you think, so you think sort of growing up with that visibility, with being able to see people that you recognized as representing, like that helped a lot.
Yes, definitely. Seeing people, talking with people, that definitely helped. And I guess my upbringing too, I was fortunate to um, be raised in a way where I was never told that I couldn't do anything, there were limits or anything. And I was very much encouraged to pursue any of my passions. So for me, the sky was the limit.
Yeah, amazing, wonderful. So I wanted to ask, because you talked about ecologists in Cote d'Ivoire, and they will be doing essential work. They will be doing really important research, but there seems to be the focus is always on what's going on in Western countries and what research they're up to. Is there anything that you can think of or that you'd like to say about how to increase the visibility? Or it's probably, I would imagine, but I don't know whether I'm speaking for our listeners or not, but the overwhelming majority of the ecologists that they'll read and study will be doing research in the West. So it just seems like there's all this stuff going on over there, and it just doesn't receive the attention that it warrants. I just wanted to ask if you have any idea about how to direct people towards it and to look there, because it's essential.
I don't know if I have recommendations on how to direct them there, but I certainly have some with regards to barriers. That's actually a topic that's very dear to my heart. So yes, indeed, there's a lot of cool and important and impactful research done in Africa, and not many people know about it because for some reason we're not really part or invited or encouraged to be on that global scientific sphere. And there's many reasons to that. Financial, first of all, all these paywalls for journals, or the high cost for registration to conferences, visa issues, etc. And also just how costly it would be just even to get there. The fact that a lot of the conferences happen in the West. Why don't they also happen elsewhere in the global South? So that this is one thing. The second thing, and especially speaking from Côte d'Ivoire, which is a francophone country, is language barrier. We speak French, and fortunately, I don't know, but English is the lingua franca for research. And that's a larger conversation that goes beyond, I would say, Africa, but in general, the fact that research is really done in English is really poses a real barrier to all the people in the world who speak so many types of languages, and who have to pay also this extra cost of effort of learning the language at an academic level and still trying to quote unquote perform at the level that's required if you want to be again quote unquote successful in academia or in research. And so that's a big thing. People who cannot or have challenges overcoming that language barrier have more troubles publishing in journals that would be read by other people, or well known, and get them that visibility. So for me, it's really thinking carefully about all these costs, and really changing those barriers. Rethinking also the languages that we use in research, and thinking about having abstracts in different languages, or having more assistance for people who speak other languages that are not costly, not like having to go pay an editor or some translation person outside to again try to publish, but have those services provided by societies like yours, for example. Um, so these are the options, and then I think things like what you're doing right now, but going beyond like I guess diversifying the diversity that you're looking at, and knowing that um, research is, yeah, definitely not only done in the West or specific countries, and going to those places, reaching out to those people from those places to also speak from their experience and provide that perspective.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, thank you for answering that. Yeah, we could talk about that all day, but um, so just to the penultimate question, I'd just like to ask if you'd like to shout out any peers, any people who helped you along the way, anyone who you can think of that that has helped to form you into who you are today.
Absolutely. And I mean, of course, the shout out would go beyond people who are Black, because I don't only operate in a Black world, and there's been a lot of people who have been helpful who are just from all backgrounds. So all my mentors, my current supervisor, who's been a real champion for me and for all the activities, extracurricular activities that we'd be part of, so Maggie Xenopoulos, um, my previous supervisors, Anna Hargreaves, a lot of women role models that I've had as I've been going through my studies. I've been really fortunate. I've just seen women all over for me. So being a woman scientist is not an issue for me in that sense. Um, and specifically for Black ecologists, one of my mentors who's such a supportive and wonderful person is Swan Gordon, who's a professor in the US. And I would also shout out to an auntie mentor, Annick Tahiri, who is a professor in Côte d'Ivoire. And then to researchers at ACARE that I mentioned, that really aims at protecting and researching African Great Lakes. So Kevin Obiero, Zepha Jode, Alfreda Chang, and the African Women in Science, which is a program happening there. And all these women who participate to that program are really going to change the face of ecological research in Africa, I know. So shout out to them all.
Amazing, that's wonderful. I mean, it's so great to hear all these different names and all these different projects. It really just does go to show that all you have to do is just look. Open your eyes. And so, just to finish up, the theme for this year's UK Black History Month is "Time for Action, Change Not Words." So, I suppose I wanted to ask what you thought about that, whether that there's anything you'd like to say on that from your own experience, or just from other experiences that you know of. What's I suppose we could frame it in an ecological sense and say what is the change that needs to happen in ecology. And if you wanted to take on the mantle and try and do it for wider society, I would more than welcome that. But we'll stick to ecology for the moment. But time for change, action, not words.
It's a tough question, and yeah, I certainly don't have all the answers at all. One thing I feel, which has been a big focus in the past few years, is equity, diversity, and inclusion, and that really includes all sorts of diversities. And as we just mentioned, it's not just diversity based on the color of our skin, but cultural diversity, linguistic diversity, um, gender diversity, experiences diversity. And so I think keeping our eyes open, as you said, to all these things that you may not think about is important. Asking questions to people, recommendations for other people, and and also is also moving, traveling, um, going what's happening out there in places that you haven't been.
Just to finish up, there was something that someone said in a blog post, and I should drop their name because it's rude of me to not do it. It's Nasifi Bitani. She just did a blog post for us today, and she's got a really nice part in that blog post where she talks about how essential it is for um, the functionality of systems to have diversity. And I think we are not the exception in that as human beings. We, you know, that rings true in every single facet of life. So yeah, entirely agree with opening our minds to different opinions, different people, different backgrounds is absolutely essential to equity and diversity. Right. Well,
Can I add one more thing that just came up to my mind? I think another thing that's important to think about is, the basically how Western science was built, that system, academic system, and I guess the work culture, the expectations behind it. I know work is being done to look at these metrics that are supposed to indicate success and all those things, and that has direct impact on the ability of some people to also access these fields. But I think it just goes beyond, and it's for all of us in terms of our mental health and our ability to just be humans. And so I think cultivating a more compassionate heart, and more compassionate outlook to the way we do things in academia and in ecology would also be helpful in making things better.
yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, cultivating. I'm definitely going to use that for the title of this podcast. It's a great word, um, and very appropriate and rings very true. So yeah, but yeah, I just want to thank you for your time today. It's been a really great discussion. I've really enjoyed it, and yeah, I just want to say thank you from me and the listeners for your time, Sandra.
My pleasure. Thank you, Frank, and everybody listening.